Formnext 2023 with maple glass. What's up, Tony?
Hey, how are ya? Good to see ya.
Last time you saw Tony, it was during a live broadcast from this event, and Tony got to bring a bunch of really cool prints up and kind of do a really quick showcase of these. But I wanted to stop by your booth because I wanted to dive a little bit deeper and explain why the machine isn't here.
Yes, totally.
So let's go into that first. The machine that printed this glass, there's a reason why it's here, and why isn't that?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit big. It's about 200 kilos, so it didn't fit in my suitcase. We've got some units around the world. There's one demoing now in Canada, and we've just sold one in America. Hopefully get one soon in the UK, and we've got obviously a few floating around in Australia.
I hope you get more just
Thank
globally.
you.
It's a really awesome technology. Tell me a little bit about how exactly you're able to take glass and melt it and extrude it. I think it still boggles my mind that that's possible.
Yeah, totally. So it's a two-step process. Basically, first we make the filament, and we start with essentially a crucible, a flower pot. We smash the glass up, and then we put it in this furnace, and then we pull it out with motors at a very specific speed, very specific temperature. We have a very specific hole diameter, and we can create actually very accurate sized filament. Glassament.
Glassament.
Yeah.
But that's a consistent process.
Very, very consistent, and it can be continual. So we're working on creating an auto top-up feature, basically, so we can run this machine continuously. Actually, when we had our launch event, or just an event back home, we're running the machine, and the operator, has basically, once they set it up, they can step away from it, then you just let the machine go.
Well, that makes me think of pellet extruders.
Yeah.
How if you run low on pellets, you can add pellets to the mix,
Yeah.
and then the machine just keeps going. So is that kind of... Is that what's happening? Is that kind of the process?
Yeah, that's the vibe. Initially we actually considered just using pellets, or in glass terminology we call it cullets.
Cullets, okay.
Cullets, yeah, and then using some sort of auger system. But the thermodynamics and the fluid mechanics of that is actually quite complicated to start and stop printing. We found, obviously inspiration from the polymer world. If you have filament, you have very fine control over the flow, and you can start and stop printing by reducing pressure, and it's quite phenomenal. I think that glass actually behaves in a very similar way, obviously just at a much higher temperature.
And what is that temperature? Because when we talk about FFF, we've got PLA at 190 to 210, 215, 220.
Yeah.
You've got ABS, you've got PETG, you've got ASA at a little higher, and then you've got nylons and PC blends and stuff. But
peak and all that, yeah.
We're not even approaching,
No.
even at peak and PEC and Ultra, we're not even approaching the temperatures here, right?
Yeah, we're talking crazy high temperatures. Like we often print at 1,000 degrees C. Yeah.
And that's in a head that's moving around in X and Y.
Yeah, Maple 3 has a stationary nozzle.
Stationary,
Yeah,
okay.
we've got a prototype now that basically has a moving head, so we're able to reduce, and because we have a moving head, we don't need as much space. So we can basically reduce the size of our machine by a lot, and make a desktop version that can still print parts that are this size. So we're hoping to build, soonish, we're going to have a machine that can be desktop, print parts that are this big, and run off a standard PowerPoint.
That's really cool, being able to just plug it into a wall outlet and go. For the Maple 3, you said the bed moves, not the head.
Yes.
What are the power requirements for that?
So the heated block, we actually couldn't find anyone that would make us a low voltage heated block. So we operated the heated block on 48 volts, but everyone said, all the furnace companies were saying, we want to make 240. I said, no, that's not safe.
No, not at all.
Where the extruder is, especially when you have operators near it. So I want to make it 48 volts. But at the time it was annoying. I just wanted to pay someone to make me a heated block that went up. And we had to build it ourselves, and actually ends up being quite a pivotal part of the actual machine itself. Yeah. We built it ourselves, and it uses 5 times less power than a hairdryer. So,
5 times less than a hairdryer.
Less power,
So you can hit 1,000 degrees C at 20% of what a hairdryer uses.
300 to 400 watts, and we can get up to 1,000. And we know for sure by power that we actually draw at that temperature that we could actually go much higher if we wanted to print other materials like borosilicate or much more pure silica glass, which has a much higher melting point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in talking about the glass, obviously, we have the prints in front of us.
Yeah.
And I want to spend a moment here because you've got multicolor prints,
Yep.
you have familiar prints,
Yep.
you have smoothish prints.
Yep.
The glass is a real material for additive, and you've proven it.
Yeah, totally. And glass, you know, for thousands of years has been mainly in mold making and glass blowing. There hasn't been a lot of digital kind of advancements. So we see glass as like, and a lot of people don't make parts out of glass because it's difficult, right? You need experience.
Very difficult.
It's hot. You need all the equipment, you know, it's the expertise to understand the glass and how it behaves. We can print new glasses that we've never touched before, like other glasses that our customers will throw at us, like optical glasses and stuff, just by matching the viscosity. So we just change the temperature a little bit, or sometimes we just hit print and we just print an entirely new glass without,
If you want to throw a new glass in, it's a viscosity problem.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so it's you got to get the same kind of mechanical behavior, which for glass is just finding the same or an equivalent temperature to get you the same viscosity.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, but we can also play with the viscosity too. We could heat it up more if we wanted to like droop the glass more or have like kind of weird effects. So there's kind of a lot of process control actually that we could change.
I had no idea. But it makes a lot of sense though, because if you have a standardized nozzle and a heater, then that glass coming through, once it reaches a specific viscosity, it's going to behave a certain way, and you've got a baseline, and then you can raise or lower the temperature in order to change those behaviors.
Exactly right, yeah.
It's so simple.
It's so simple.
It's so simple.
It's crazy how it kind of worked out. We thought it would be way harder to switch glasses, and then when we started trying it, it was like, this is actually really cool. We could just do other glasses.
So, and the glass too, the performance of it, can I hold this?
Yeah, you can have a look underneath. You see the honeycomb?
Oh, it's got a honeycomb, yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that the Benchy provides is performance metrics for an additive machine.
Yes.
And one of those metrics is how well it can bridge.
Yeah.
And when I talk about glass, a big melty glass, I don't imagine it bridging, but you've done it. That's a bridge.
Yeah, exactly. It's this was the first attempt at our Benchy, actually, the very first one.
There are people who melt polymers and have a 3D Benchy that's worse than this for their first attempt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we are pretty happy with how it came out. Like, we didn't expect the bridging to come out so well because, you know, the glass is at like almost 1,000 degrees.
Yeah.
So like, glass is an interesting material. You know, the viscosity curve and the way that it cools is actually, it's logarithmic in how, you know, it cools very quickly, and the change of behavior happens over a relatively small temperature range. It only has to drop like 100 degrees, 200 degrees, and that happens quite quickly when you're laying down a small amount of material.
Oh, that's right. All the energy is going into that
just
tip.
A tiny amount. So it basically cools down instantaneously, or within like, you know, 5 seconds. So
or it cools to the point it needs to.
Yeah,
within
exactly.
seconds, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it's still...
it's still 500 degrees
It's still
in the
going to
furnace.
burn you,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's past that critical point.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, the Benchy with bridging, that's actually mind-blowing. But I want to talk about multicolor here, because you've got pink glass. I see like an orangish, burnt orange glass. And may I?
Yeah, you
okay.
can. That one's a controlled failure, so it has very delicate points. You can only make this part with 3D printing. Can you see all the little tiny imperfections? They are actually meant to be there because...
Really?
Yeah, what we have done is at all these spots, we kind of pause and extrude a bit of glass, and then very quickly, a bit quicker, kind of go to the next point. So we want it to under extrude at those points, because when you shine a light through there, you kind of get like this, you get refraction off the glass, but then also you can see the source of light, which is unique to 3D printing, and that's what we want to do. We want to make new parts in a new way, do things differently, not just do the old stuff a different way.
But digital glass.
Digital glass, all from a digital design.
So how do you make it blue or pink or orange?
Right, so because we make the filament, we basically just have a different color glass that goes into it. What's really cool though is all this glass is 100% recycled. It's from the bin of a glass blowing studio that we just made friends with.
Okay, so this isn't the beer bottles in my recycle bin.
No,
this is qualified glass.
Yes, and we definitely do that. It's just this glass, there's heaps of the waste of this glass, and it is made to be reheated. So it's just a bit easier technically for us to work with. Whereas the beer bottle glass is made to go into a mold and very quickly solidify. So it's just, it requires a higher temperature, and then it has also a few more impurities because, you know, beer and stuff has gone into
I
it.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's a different level, a quality of glass. And
Yeah.
in order to use glass for additive, it has to be of a certain quality level or type,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah, exactly. So, glass is often thought of to be a very, infinitely recyclable, but if it's not clean or if there are impurities like stones and ceramics in there, then obviously we have to be careful about what we're putting into our machine.
I'm sorry you didn't put a 200 kilogram machine in your baggage, but
Yeah.
that's not here nor there. Formnext has been amazing, and being able to see this in person, especially on the live broadcast, was fun. People are going to have a lot of questions. Tony, where can they go to find out more about maple glass?
Yeah, so just have a look online. Just Google maple glass printing. We're on all the social medias. That's what everyone does these days.
We'll put links down below, though.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah.
If you made it this far in the episode, you're awesome. Don't forget to hug each other more. Fight for cause you believe in. Print all the glass. I like to say that.
Yeah.
And as always, high five. Bring
Yes.
it in.
Legend.
Oh,
that was great contact.
That was crisp.
Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you, dude.